Right, hello and welcome to the MatchDayVlogs YouTube channel. As always, please remember to smash that like button, hit subscribe, because it really does make a difference to the channel. We're here this evening in a live environment to talk about the season ahead. We'll be going over the topics of pre-season and also be looking ahead to the season. What are our general expectations, and also looking at our competitors in the Championship, where it's going to be a very different campaign with loads more games to be talking about. I'm joined here by Dan Hargraves, also Rob Maddox as well, Saints Rob, and as always, Jack. How are you all doing, gentlemen? We keeping well?
Yeah, decent. Excited.
Oh, well, mate, very excited.
So I guess first things first, I mean, we've had plenty of pre-season games to be having a look at. Is there anything particularly stood out for you, Rob, in terms of what we've seen in the difference of play that we've seen from Russell Martin?
Well, I know we're not here to talk about last season, but I think if you compare the pre-season that Nathan Jones had, 4 or 5 weeks of the World Cup break versus the 4 weeks that Russell Martin's had at Saints, I think you can definitely see that Russell Martin's implemented his style on the team. I think the fact that we're seeing visible frustration from some people in the crowd is a good sign that Russell Martin is getting his points across to the players. We look like a proper football team, in my opinion. You watch Match of the Day, you watch highlights of the Premier League, you watch La Masia play football, you watch the Pep teams. We look like we're trying to implement that style, which is what Russell Martin has spoke about in the past. And to me, the Reading game, as I'm sure the people who went and the people who watched online saw, that was some of the best football we've played in years, in my opinion. We looked like we were properly set up. We had players who knew exactly what they were doing. It was very organised. And we just looked like we were breaking teams down. I mean, Arze, we played yesterday. You look at Jordi Classy, he came out and said, we try to press teams, we try to press players. Southampton were breaking the lines. When have we last heard of a Southampton team breaking the lines from another side? That was one of our main weaknesses when teams drop off. We can't get through. So, to me, the emergence of that Russell Martin style that we've researched, all of us, and looked at Swansea, has really come into play. And it's a complete world away from what we saw last season with the havoc of Jones ball and people not really understanding what Sellers was trying to do, and obviously Rob Hasenhüttl's 4-2-2 gegenpress. It's just great to see, and I'm really pleased that the players somewhat have bought into what he's trying to do, and it's made a lasting impression on the pitch. And hopefully, in a game that's 46, in a season that's 46 games long, it's a style that will mean that we can really outrun those teams and outplay them and play through them. And it's a style you need to essentially win a championship.
Yeah, well, those are big words. I like those. Win a championship would be nice to see.
I've liked what I see in the passing and the stuff, but I feel like we're lacking up front massively, the lack of goals. But with the opposition we've been playing, it's been pretty difficult, to be fair. Like everyone else has said, really, Benfica's been a tough one. So, yeah.
So obviously we're recording this prior to the season starting. We're in a situation where we still have a lot of our star talent remaining. I'm just going to go to you, Dan, and basically ask you about worst case scenario. Should we lose some big name players? Are there any particular areas in the squad that you're thinking we need to do a bit more here, we need a bit more strength, a bit more depth?
I mean, I'm still not confident we've got a recognised goal scorer. Obviously, we've got two players in Shea Adams and Adam Armstrong who absolutely smashed it the last time they were respectively in this division. But what we've seen from both of them in the Saints shirt over the last year in particular, I think a lot of fans probably aren't confident. I think they probably want someone who has experienced the league, obviously know the system. Joel Pirou is the one who's been mentioned a lot, obviously, because he knows the system. I think that's an easy mention. I could probably list tens of names for strikers that I think could do a job for Saints up front in the Championship next season, or this season, I should say. I think goal scorer definitely, and then it's just a case of replacing anyone who leaves, I think. Obviously, it looks like we're going to have at least one star midfielder leave. We're going to have to get someone else in that department. And again, you have to talk about experience. I think a lot of people, I don't think frustrated is the right word, but how many more youngsters can we actually afford to bring into the squad when it did eventually cost us in the Premier League last season? We do need experience. Our competitors, they will be signing experienced players. I mean, Conor Cody's probably the first one that comes to mind in terms of a player I would have loved to have seen come to Southampton that has gone to a rival in Leicester, just for the experience. We know what sort of motivator he is. So I think it's not necessarily about the talent that we're going to bring onto the pitch, but what the personalities are like as well, because we're going to need some big personalities in this squad, because I still think it's really, really young. We're going to play a great brand of football. You know, I do think we'll be up there, but will we have that extra margin where, you know, some of our competitors might have it and it'd be an edge over us, if that makes sense?
I'm sure, like everyone said, striker, probably goalkeeper as well. I think Bazunu is a good player, big fan of him. I just think he's got a few mistakes in him. He's still a young player, still raw. So I think, maybe just, obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of McCarthy. I think, he's got a few howlers in him. So maybe getting a better backup or someone who can actually push Bazunu, that if he isn't mentally ready or anything like that, someone who can back him up. And then obviously striker. I love Che, but if he can do another championship season with his confidence probably gone a bit, I'm not sure. Onuachu, it seems like he's off. I don't think he's really cut out for how we want to play with Russell Martin, so it's probably for him to go. And then Adam Armstrong seems to be playing that weird left winger, so kind of dropping back role, so he's not. It doesn't look to be our main striker. And then Mara, I think he's again too young. Needs a bit more time. So I'd be hoping for. Getting. I've seen people talking about Perot and everything like that. Obviously, I'm not an expert in who we should be signing, but I think a striker and a goalkeeper that will push Bazunu. I think in the main positions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one big concern of mine, is the fact the lack of experience that perhaps we've got. You know, we've got a lot of great talent coming, mainly from Manchester City at the moment, who have been absolutely tearing up on the pitch. I mean, we've got Sam Edozie. I mean, are some of those younger players this season going to get a better shout in the league?
You got to think probably. I mean, considering how many games there are, you're going to see a lot more rotation, a lot more players in and out. But there's still quite a few to come back from injury, and that uncertainty of whether they're leaving this year. Like we were talking about Sulemana earlier on, even Roman Peru. What's going to happen there? There's a lot in that squad for spaces to fill, and where it's so uncertain right now. I don't know what the team's going to look like this time next week. At all.
Next 4 days.
Literally, in the next 4 days, it could be anything. And even the Norwich game, like you might think you know what Sheffield will look like, but Norwich can be something completely different. And there's a little uncertainty there that kind of scares me. But given the players that I think Ryan Manning should be like the bar of where we sit for transfers this season. Of like, it needs to be this kind of smart. Not that kind of money, because we should probably spend some. But then it's where we go from there. Everything right now for me, apart from how good the football looks, is still really kind of up in the air of how we are actually going to look as a squad. But the football looks great, doesn't it? That football looks good.
I mean, we talk about experience. Do we want experience of the Championship or experienced? Do you think
Connor Cody would fit the system? Or if we had gotten Connor Cody, would you have liked him? Do you think that would have? I kind of think of like when I see Lianco barely moving at the back.
Well, I think if we're playing a back four as we are now, so we've been setting up in a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to name it, right? It's a system. Connor Cody, when he played for Wolves in his Championship winning season, when he was captain, was that middle centre back position, and he played that role for I can't remember the record. He set a record for Wolves of the most number of games played, which was eventually beaten by Ward-Prowse. And he always played that middle centre-back role. Now, he's currently injured for Leicester, so we don't really know how he's suiting that back four for Leicester. But when I put out my predicted, the ideal team I'd have at Sheffield Wednesday with transfers included and whatnot, Connor Cody was paired with Jack Stevens, I believe it was. Might have been Ronnie Edwards. And people were like, well, Cody can't play in a back four, and I guess we did see that at Everton a little bit, but I don't. Yeah. Connor Cody for me has always been, when he played in that Wolves team back when they got into the Premiership. I always remember seeing Connor Cody playing really good diagonal passes, long ball, short passes. He looked like he was quite good with his feet, but I don't think we've seen that in that Leicester team for me to say whether he was good or not. But I do think that Shea Charles, as good as he is on the ball, probably isn't meant to play that role. I mean, we've seen that. Russell Martin said, we see him as a defensive midfielder. We all know that Lavia is likely, by the time this goes out, going to be gone, and Shea Charles is that replacement. We should be playing him in his primary position, but he does add a lot of ball playing qualities into that left centre back role. Now that he's gone, and we have Zach Orr, who's coming in from Arsenal, apparently, according to the Telegraph.
Is that done? Is it?
So I don't know, but the Telegraph.
I won't hold a shit.
Yeah, the Telegraph are very good, and I'm sure he is coming in because Mike McGrath does not get a whole lot wrong. But because as of tonight, we're getting rid of Salisu for reportedly 12 to 17, whatever you want to believe, million. And he does fill that Salisu role of left centre back, ball playing. Scout reports say he does fill that profile. So Shea Charles, I'm sure, will get moved into CDM, but I'm not sure if Cody could offer the same ball playing abilities as someone like Zach Orr, who's played and trained in an Arteta system, which is quite similar to ours.
I mean, obviously, when we've got 46 games in the campaign, it's a long list of games to get through that. I mean, my big concern is the fact that if you've got a new system of football, a whole new list of players, how quickly they've got to bed into the new system. I mean, how do you see the first 5 games going for Saints? I mean, do you think it's going to be top of the league all the way till Christmas?
The thing is, we've got the
automatic.
Obviously, we've got the opportunity to be top of the league for the whole year if we want to be. Obviously, playing on the Friday night. No, I don't. I genuinely would not be surprised if they won 2 of those first 6 games. Yeah. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to instill into players. It's really technical. It's not there yet. And the season's 4 days away at the time of recording, and we're going to probably have a squad that looks completely different by September to what it looks like now. So, that word patience probably has been thrown around way too much with Southampton Football Club over the last year or two that fans would like, but they will have to be patient with this. I think it's a really tough start. Maybe getting the, on paper, tough sides out of the way first, that's probably a good thing. And most of them are at home. If we're going to win the championship, if we're going to get promoted, home form's going to have to be a big part of our success. So having Leeds and Leicester at home within the first, off the top of my head, 10 games or so, I think that's a big plus. But we've got to go to Sunderland, we've got to go to Middlesbrough, Norwich. They're going to want to get back into that mix of kind of being in and around the playoffs. It's a big club. So, yeah, if we don't win all 7 of our first games, it's not an issue. There's 46 football matches here, It's going to take time. And like I said off camera to Rob, okay, if we don't win the first handful, if we've won 1, 2, 3 of the first 7, 8, that's okay, because by Christmas I'm very confident that we'll be flying.
Just to add to that, Burnley won 1 in 5.
Yeah.
One of their first 5.
Yeah.
Forest, who ended up going on the best form after the first 10 games, I think it was 1 in 9.
They were bottom of the league when Steve Cooper came in.
10 games in, right?
Yeah.
10 games in, and
September.
they finished. Well, they got promoted. That's what that matters. And some of the football they were playing, some of the form they went under. The Championship, it's just so different to the Premier League. In the Premier League, every game has to be a win or a draw. Like, especially in our situation, as we were last year, every game mattered so much more. In the Championship, I'm not saying they don't matter less, but we have enough time that if things do go bad, obviously we don't have a World Cup break like last year to save our season, but if things do start to go bad, as Dan said, September is such a tough month. We play basically all of the promotion favourites in that month. If things don't go well, then I can see a lot of the fan base turning, but it is important that in a championship season you give patience to your manager, especially when he's trying to install a whole new system with players who we signed to be great for a high pressing one. So the players we weren't signed for Russell Martin's system, obviously pre this season, like we're talking Ryan Manning, Shea Charles and anyone else. They were signed for high pressing football, which is exactly the opposite of a possession based system. So patience is going to be important. However, if we do go into the end of September not being in the top 6, obviously that will feel like a slight disappointment. I mean, if we don't beat a Sheffield Wednesday on Friday, who lost to Doncaster last week, obviously we will be disappointed. And I think Russell Martin does understand that fans who travelled thousands of miles last year, paid thousands of pounds, they want to see that immediate reaction. Or else the fan base, unfortunately, like they did with Jones and Sellers and Ralph in the end, will turn. But I do think we need to allow him more time than we gave them, because we can afford to, very simply.
Yeah, well, I think when we've got like a return of 2 home wins in the league campaign, it's kind of it is tough being a fan, watching your team not really perform and do those kind of things. But with season ticket sales, I mean, we've had like maybe 23,000 season ticket sales
I
already.
think we're on target for a record.
So that's quite similar. So there's a good amount of momentum there, but like I said, well, like you said, in terms of the first 5 to 10 games, it's really just have that balanced kind of view. Like, okay, we don't know who the first team actually is, who's going to be actually on the team sheet. But are there any names you're particularly worried about leaving? Who's like a must-have, a must-keep?
A must-keep.
Must-keep.
Yeah, there's none of them that I'm like...
Saving all the good questions for you, Jack.
Needs to stay.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I can't believe that I'm in a position where, I don't know about you, but for a few games in, I'm like, I'm so excited to see what Adam Armstrong does this year. I'm so excited to see him cook, and it's just ridiculous. Like, last season, I've been like, nah, just... I don't even want to go in that kitchen. But this year, I'm like, yo, I'm ready to... Every flavour you've got, let's see what we've got going on here. But as far as people go, I think we all want Alcaraz to say, especially because he's made that... He's really put his foot in it by saying that he wants to stay. So anything that else happens now is like, oh, buddy, you better stay, otherwise you're in big trouble. Yeah. Even Suleimana, after the last Liverpool games, he sort of was like, I want to be here next season and try and help us stay up. And I guess he's injured right now, so we don't know what's going on. I guess that deal didn't quite go through that we all heard about.
I do think it's weird when players are like linked to leave. What you have to remember is, so Lianco, when he was going to Besiktas, I don't know if you guys have seen the video, but he was filmed in whatever, I don't know what city Besiktas is in. It's all right. I don't know if we have any Turkish fans, but I'm sorry. But
it's in Turkey.
It was filmed in a Turkish airport, and he looked really unhappy about going to Besiktas. So I think people need to remember that, like Suleimana, very talented young players who obviously want to forward their careers. It's not their fault that the club accepted a bid for them, right? So I think that has to be in the back of our minds. If Suleimana does go. Obviously, he did say to journalists at the end of last year, like, oh, I'd love to stay and help us get back to where we are. Che Adams came out with that Instagram post or Twitter post, like, we will help you get back to where we belong. The we's, everyone kind of goes into that a little bit too deep, including myself. But it's not their fault that a club has offered our asking price for them and they're being sold, right? So, like Tino Livramento, we've seen over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long it's been, fans are like, oh, I'm so disappointed in Tino if he leaves. I'm so disappointed. It's not his fault if we sell him for good money. It's just not. That's not the way transfers work. I'm sure Tino will be very thankful. Yeah, he's been really thankful about how we've helped rehabilitate him and kind of bring him back into the role and the squad. And if he leaves, he's leaving for a club with Champions League football. I mean, they're yet to match any asking price that we've offered yet. But if they do, then it's good money for the player. I mean, we bought him for £5 million. Yeah, we have the slide and sell on clause, but at the end of the day, that's a lot of profit. But don't be angry at the players. Right. Clubs have offered what we want. Yeah. It's not their fault.
And, something else Jason Wilcott said is, if you believe everything you see on Twitter, then Southampton won't have any players. So I think just take everything with a little pinch of salt, and Southampton have got to have these valuations, or they're going to lose all the players for a little bit of money, and that means they can't reinvest it in key positions. It's going to be a tough season. It's going to be a grind, and you can't really predict too much of what's going to happen because of the recruitment and what we've seen so far. If Ward-Prowse and Lavia go, you're talking maybe about the 70, 80, 90 million pounds to spend. How well do they reinvest that into the squad? Right.
How much would they need to invest in?
Yeah. And I think midfield, like I said, is going to be a really key area. And if Ward-Prowse and Lavia go, that was your starting midfield 2 for last season. So, I think there's still a lot of questions to be asked and about Russell Martin. How's he going to play? Is he going to have a midfield 3? Is he going to have a midfield 2? What needs to be recruited in that area? I think Will Smallbones looked incredibly encouraging in pre-season and had a great season at Stoke last campaign.
I've been impressed with Smallbones.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a big season, and he's been saying that to us in his interviews, and I'm excited to see what happens for him. I think it's then bringing in another marquee name alongside Smallbone and others to play, and I think hopefully maybe Alcaraz in a number 10 kind of roaming position. So I think there's still a lot of questions, and like I said at the start, I think the team that play against Sheffield Wednesday could be incredibly different to the team that played the most of the season. So a lot of questions, and I think a long way to go still in this transfer window.
I think the only problem the football club has is the likes of Alcaraz, maybe Suleimana, these players who do stay. If they do stay, obviously this is hypothetical, I think they've only got 1 year in them in the Championship. So then if Saints can't get themselves back into the Premier League within 1 year, they've got a big problem. You know, okay, cool, you've got 3 years of parachute payments, but if you are able to hold on to your star talent for 1 year, thinking that you are going to get back, if that doesn't work, you know, then we're looking at a whole much bigger problem.
Yeah, we're in a better position with the contracts wise, aren't we? You know, I mean, with those contracts that have been put in place, I mean, obviously Joe Wilcox has come in a lot later on, but with the way Sports Republic are doing things, is it almost like all is forgiven for last season?
No, I don't think you can forgive. I don't think yet you can forget. Like, if we go promoted, win the league, sure. But I don't think right now you can't. Like, they're doing that. But right, let's just put it straight down. We got relegated last year, bottom of the league. Right, awful football. No one left St Mary's at the end of the Liverpool game being happy with what they've just watched and spent their hard-earned money on. In the cost of living crisis to watch, right? Let's just be real. We saw that.
I smiled because we scored 4 goals. But
we scored 4 goals for like the first time in forever.
I smiled because I knew what the view count would be.
but like, so we go into this summer. We've let go so many staff who obviously aren't in the roles we see. The redundancies at the club is ridiculous, as it is with every club. And I know the staff will accept that, but it's tough, and that's not nice. I don't think anything can redeem last year. The way they're going about it this year is the correct way to do it, by bringing in new staff and holding firm on our bids. I don't believe in what Leeds have done at all by loading players out for a year, because there's no respect or loyalty or anything like that. But for them to be, I genuinely, I couldn't tell you what it is to be forgiven for last year. I'm not the only one. There were fans leaving who went to way more games than me last year that were just gutted and floored, who spent thousands of pounds. Wilcox did say that. He did say that in his recent interview with The Echo. He was talking about getting the fans back on side. And he says, well, they have to be behind us. And we will always be behind us. We've seen Wednesday selling out 3,500, 3,000 tickets. Plymouth selling out within 48 hours. It's ridiculous. Our away support is so good. But the fans just we deserve respect from the club, that we're not going to be pushovers this season. We deserve respect from Martin, from the players. Martin's been fantastic. When he came over at Reading, just clapped the fans before kickoff. Stuff like that, I'm all ears for. And it's so easy as a manager to...
It felt like a moment.
Yeah, it felt like a moment, right? It's like when I was at Cardiff at home, Cardiff away, when Ralph's first game, Ryan Valerie got hooked at half-time. We lost like 1-0 to Callum Patterson or whatever it was. And he came over and he started doing all this, and that just helps. It's so easy as a manager to get fans on your side. But the fans just... We deserve a good season. But in terms of what they can do to repay us for last year, I don't have the answer to it. But the bare minimum for me, as Wilcox has said in his interview, promotion, don't be pushovers in the transfer market.
Which is shown.
Yeah, show integrity. Just play every game 100%. We deserve the effort that we didn't get last year. Simple as that.
Just to sneak in there as well, I think another point that was really important for me from that interview was when he said, you know, from an outsider's perspective, it looked like Saints were hanging on by a thread in the Premier League as well. I think Southampton would have eventually gotten relegated. You know, I think the way they were going, they would have had, you know, it's so competitive, it's so tough. You know, it would have had to be a significant turnaround in how they approach the top flight and, you know, footballing operations. And so now they've got an opportunity. Obviously, last season was an absolute shambles, and, you know, as supporters, you know, we're not going to forgive the football club for that, and Sport Republic, etc., etc. But there is such a good opportunity there to not only win fans back, but get new fans, get younger fans in. You know, we're going to be winning football matches, touch wood, over the course of the season, a lot more. You know, we're going to be competitive. It's so nice just to hear some positivity from the outside regarding Southampton. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything until that first whistle at Hillsborough is blown on Friday night. But, you know, if someone from the outside is saying it looked like Southampton were a shambles anyway, and eventually they would have got relegated, it was going to happen. It was eventually going to happen, as much as I hate to say it. So we can sit here and blame everyone involved, and I obviously do, but, you know, now there is such a good opportunity for the football club to get things right and, you know, win their fans back over. Record season ticket sales. Yes. That's brilliant.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But, I think there's a massive opportunity there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, looking at the competitors in the league and the activities they're doing, is there anyone you're particularly thinking? I mean, there's lots of talk about Leicester. There's lots of talk about Leeds, of course, with the other clubs that got relegated with us. But are there any particular other sides in the Championship already that you think are going to be a threat to us?
you know, I come into it with such Premier League blindness. I don't know about you boys, but I'm just like, I don't care about the Championship. And now I'm in it, I'm like, oh no, now I've got to learn everything about it. But I did last season for some reason. I don't know why, but I watched a few Middlesbrough games because when people were talking about Carrick, I was like, yeah, all right, then let's give it a watch. I was like, yo, this is some pretty good football here.
Chuba Akpom, right?
Yeah. It's just some really good stuff. So for me, Middlesbrough are a team that, you know, when we look at those predictions, we're seeing Leicester, Leeds, Southampton in varying positions. But I'm like, I don't know. I think Middlesbrough might break through, especially with Leeds as they are, and Leicester kind of doing Leicester moves of last season still. Just nothing's exciting.
Leeds, I'm a little worried about, but their whole transfer business, because they had a few release clauses a little bit low. The transfer business has been okay. Leicester, I mean, I think we're going to be battling with them for first place for sure. But again, like we said earlier, Middlesbrough, they look incredible. They're probably the most frightening team for me. And last season, watching them under Carrick was just incredible.
I think Borough are a weird one because their star players. I mean, Chuba Akpom's on a perm, right? He's staying. I don't know why there's not been more interest in him. He scored 28 goals last year, right? But they've lost Zach Steffen, I believe, back to Man City or somewhere else. Ryan Giles gone to Luton. They've lost. Think of a player. Aaron Ramsey from Villa back to Villa.
Of course, yeah.
Cameron Archer back to Villa. They've lost big players. I don't know. Borough obviously a good outfit and they played really well last year. I mean, we spoke off camera about Coventry. They've lost, you know, I don't think Coventry will be up there as much. Now, this is, as Jack said, a completely blind-eyed view of the Championship. Honestly, I've declined to go on podcast because I don't know enough about it this season.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to get roasted.
I flat out refuse to talk about it because I know nothing.
I'll get cooked, but I think that Saints, people are right to put Saints and Leicester up in that top two. I mean, Sunderland lost Amad Diallo, who's huge for them last year. I just think Leicester and Saints is just going to be. I think we'll go down to the wire. But Leeds on the final day of the season is going to be huge up at Ellen Road. Massive game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right in saying it's difficult to predict the Championship because there's so many loan players. It's like it's basically like a Premiership loan graveyard with like a lot of this. So you don't know what a team's going to look like the following season because it's all completely line up. But yeah, no, it's a promising start to the campaign. Obviously away at Sheffield. I mean, just looking at those competitors in particular, I mean, they probably got promoted in the most dramatic fashion ever. You know, basically out of it in the playoff semis against Peterborough, and then to do what they did was phenomenal. But do you see them as a threat?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's a sense of the unknown. The Championship is so unpredictable. That's what makes the league so watchable. So look. It's 30,000 fans behind their team back in the Championship, you know, where they probably feel like they belong in the Premier League, but obviously they haven't been there for some time. They're back in the second tier after the problems they had. So they're going to be well up for it. Of course they are. From a little bit of research, their pre-season hasn't gone great. I think they've lost some players. I think recruitment hasn't gone well. Obviously, Darren Moore got the sack, and they brought in, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but Cisco Munoz.
Go for it.
I think that's a good attempt. Who obviously got Watford promoted a couple of years ago. So he's got some pedigree there, you know. I think it's a tough start. It's on Sky, but I think, like Russell Martin said, it's a great opportunity to put a stamp on the league.
I'm sort of going against the crowd here.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be an easy game, actually. The fact that they've just got promoted, it's Hillsborough, it's under the lights, it's televised. I wouldn't be disappointed if we came away with a 1-1 draw, but a decent performance. So I'm not naive enough to think we'll go there, win 3-0. I think it'll be a tough game, and hopefully we'll come on the right side of it.
In terms of other sides, it's so hard to call. I mean, who would have called a Luton Coventry playoff final? I know. You know, even though I know Luton got into the semis with a certain Welshman the year before.
Who?
But it's completely unpredictable. You know, there are some big clubs in there. From what I've read going into the League One season, I think a lot of League One fans are happy with the teams that got promoted out of League One last year because they're all massive, you know, and could put a stamp on the Championship, let alone, you know, the third tier. I think Ipswich being back in the Championship, I think that's quite scary. I think, you know, they could surprise a lot of people. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and say this is my prediction for the top six kind of thing. Because it's impossible. Yeah. It's impossible. But, you know, there are a few teams that look great. We'll just have to see. But, yeah, I think, obviously, if we're focusing on Sheffield Wednesday because they're our first opponent. They'll be up for it. We'll obviously have to see how it goes on the pitch.
Oh, yeah, I did say earlier I would be really frustrated with. I think our pre-season. I think it's been a good pre-season for us. We've as Martin has said so many times, we've come up against some really tough teams like Benfica, Champions League, Europa League, European Conference League semi-finalists, and Reading, Sellers Reading, should I add? Who we should be beating. But I think Wednesday. Wednesday coming up. Hillsborough's going to be packed. But you're right, their pre-season hasn't gone great. And I will be, as I said earlier, obviously every Saints fan who's going and will be watching on Sky will be disappointed if we don't win. Dan said, Martin said, even Wilcox has said, it's a chance to put a statement down on the league and just say, look, we're here to play. We're here to win this thing. Wilcox has said it so many times, our aim is to win the league when we get to the Premier League, when we're a top 10 team in the Premier League. It's all these whens. It's not ifs, buts, maybes, it's when, So I think Wednesday, first game of the season, we've got a tough run in September, get some points up in August. We've seen that the players can play this system well at Reading. We've seen it. And we've seen it at times against even Benfica in our first game. I just think Wednesday is such a good opportunity to just get our heads down, go there, get 3 points, clap the fans on our way home, and then we can move on to Norwich, which is a tougher game. But I'm not going to be arrogant. I'm not going to be that relegated side like Watford that just come down arrogant. Yeah, we'll go back up. No, it's tough league. 46 games. It's a long haul, but it's so important that Wednesday that the fans see something positive that they can get behind, like Wilcox and the rest of the club want us to. Because I think it's just going to be vital that we have the fans on side this year.
It does. I was getting confused because you were saying Wednesday about when we're playing Wednesday on Friday. It's just blowing my mind. It's just I can't get my head around it. But no, it will be exciting. I mean, it'd be fun to go to a few new stadiums and sort of tick off a few boxes with the stadium hopping grounds. But it's generally
so disappointing to Bristol's on a Tuesday night.
Oh, gutted.
So I wanted to go to Zaza Bazaar and hit it hard, but it ain't going to happen.
King Street.
That Park Street on a Tuesday night, I hear it's wild.
It's a fun one for sure.
I want to take Mike to Fresh's week.
I ain't ready for that. No way. But yeah, I mean, I guess that pretty much sort of sums up, our feelings on the season ahead. Is there any particular last comments you wanted to drop in there? Anything we've particularly missed?
Do you know what? After the last week of stuff, I can't get over how much I like Jason Wilcox. I think we were talking about can you forgive the owners for last season? It's like you can if you don't let Rasmus do interviews. If you don't let Rasmus anywhere near, we shouldn't see him for another year or so. Just let Jason look like he's going to punch you in the face.
I'd love a Jason Wilcox TED Talk though.
Oh my God, that's kind of what I want.
Yeah,
12 mil on busting your knees, boys.
I'd love to see the club organise another fan forum. Yeah. I think with fresh faces at the club, that'd be really good. Get Wilcox on panel. Our captain, whoever that is. That's a question. That is a question. Who would you, if Ward-Prowse does depart, who would you make captain?
Ooh. Either Bednarek or Stevens.
Yeah, I think Bednarek.
Rocking a hard place.
Yeah, I think everyone was saying Bednarek, weren't they? Really, or the majority probably thinking Jack was going to go.
Yeah.
So
I love Stevens personally.
Yeah, I think if he stays, probably have Jack Stevens. I think it's got to be someone from the back line. Realistically, I don't think.
See the whole pitch.
That's where our experience is right now.
Give it to Lianco and watch the world burn.
Oh yeah, but no, I can't wait. Personally, from a personal note, I'm really excited. I was talking to my barber today. He was like, "Oh, you got to be." He's a United fan. So he's like, "You got to be gutted, Saints out the Premier League." And I was like, "Well, yeah, of course, everyone was gutted because it's not nice to see your team relegated. But as you said, we get to go to some new grounds. Hopefully, get more wins than last year. There's a lot to like, and I think it's just going to be nice. Hopefully, seeing some of those Deadwood players leave. Obviously, we've had new faces come in behind the scenes. Like Jason Wilcox, Charlie Boss, Phil Potts. We've got a whole new setup. There's no more Semmons and just Toby Steele and stuff. I think it'll be really good for the club to put out fresh face fan forum. Just everyone go into this season with just a fresh look, and then we can go from there.
I think they're just waiting to make sure that they win their first 5 games.
Yeah, probably.
But like I said, everyone's going to have to be patient.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, and I think every supporter should be. Pre-season, obviously, I think a lot of coaches probably want the transfer window closed before the season starts. It's that whole cliche. Obviously, we're definitely going to be a club affected by the transfer window and having some key talent leave. We're probably going to recruit as well. So, yeah, the squad's going to look different in September, massively. But there's so much to be excited about. Pre-season, you know, I'm not one for playing sides in lower divisions that you're just going to roll over. It's not a test.
No.
You know, anyone moaning about the RZ game on Saturday,
Yeah.
we looked great.
Yeah, I thought
Okay, we
looked
lost the
really
game.
Yeah.
Should have been a penalty.
It should have been a penalty. It should have been a penalty, and we're going to be saying that a lot in the EFL with
no
certain
VAR,
officials
no VAR.
and no VAR.
Yeah,
Bring
you
it
have to
on.
be decided whether that's a good or a bad thing. We'll wait till Wednesday, Sheffield Wednesday, shall I say. And then we'll see if that's a good or a bad thing. There's no VAR. Yeah.
We'll wait till Friday for Wednesday. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very easy.
Yeah, but no, excited.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Dan, Rob, Jack, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
I think some of the cameras have died on us already, so we're just going to focus on this one, but there we go. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to be filtering some of the other fan comments that we've got here from this esteemed audience that we've got watching us film this. So thank you so much for joining us. Really do much appreciate it. As always, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, see ya.